And now they're trotting out celebrities to make this case. So in just a second, I'm going to explain to you which celebrities are actually making this case. Apparently, it's everybody in the NBA, essentially. And they're not being coy about this. They don't just believe that Trump is a racist. They believe that anyone who agrees with Donald Trump on policy is a racist. The Democrats, I think this is such a major political mistake they're making right now. So let's start here with LeBron James. So LeBron, who, again, I don't know why one of the best power forwards in the history of the NBA has amazing things to say on matters of immigration. I wasn't aware that penetrating the paint has anything to do with making border policy. But in any case, here's LeBron James saying that Trump has given racism an opportunity to be out. Again, what he's really saying here is that because of Donald Trump, everybody in Donald Trump's base, they're secret racist, but now they're coming out.
The guy in control has given people in racism, and negative racism, an opportunity to be out and outspoken without fear. And that's the fearful thing for us. Because it's with you and it's around every day, but he's allowed people to come out and just feel confident about doing negative things.
Okay, so this idea that Trump has emboldened racists, what he is really suggesting, listen, I said this during the campaign when he was actively appealing to the alt-right, is that Trump should have done more to tamp down racism. But what LeBron is actually saying here, LeBron James, when he says that Trump has given racism an opportunity to be out of the closet, and then he says, I like when he says negative racism as opposed to presumably positive racism. The idea that racism begins and ends with Donald Trump, I think, is an exaggeration. Now, what LeBron says is not all that awful. I think that you can make the case that Trump did that during the campaign. But what Greg Popovich does really is awful. And this is where he says that Trump can't even prove to me that he's not a racist. There's no way Trump can prove to me he's not a racist other than by presumably agreeing with Greg Popovich, the coach of the San Antonio Spurs.
It's insidious, and it's still our national sin that we have to work on. And every time I hear somebody say they're not a racist, they are.
Okay, this is the logic of the left. Okay, and Greg Popovich, this is so obnoxious. I like Popovich as a coach, but he should really shut up about politics because this is an obnoxious, ridiculous statement. That if somebody says they're not a racist, every time I hear somebody say they're not a racist, they are. Okay, Greg, I'll say you're a racist. How's that? You're a racist. Now, how do you respond? Presumably you respond by saying, no, I'm not a racist. But according to your logic, this now means you're a racist. So we're now caught in a knights and knaves logic problem, where if the minute somebody's accused of being a racist, there's no way to get out of it, right? Because if you deny that you're a racist, then that means you're a racist. And if you say that you're a racist, then you're obviously a racist. So there's no way to avoid being a racist. As soon as somebody throws the charge racist at you, we're all supposed to run for the hills and just assume that person is a racist. And then you wonder why Trump won? You wonder why Trump still has a solid base? It's because everyone's attempt to lump together Trump's base with Trump, everyone's attempt to lump Trump's policies together with Trump's rhetoric, everyone's attempt to take Trump's individual statements and then suggest that it is indicative of a broader worldview. I don't know that Trump has a worldview about anything. I'm not even sure that Donald Trump has a worldview about Starburst. There's a story yesterday, by the way, it's pretty great, that staffers at one of the Senate offices were being tasked with going through boxes of Starburst and picking out the pink and red Starburst as a gift to President Trump, which is just astonishing. I hope if I were ever president one day, I would force everybody, I wouldn't just buy the sour packs of jelly beans, I would force Senate staffers to go through entire bags of jelly beans and try to determine which one were the sour Jelly Bellies, and then give them to me. It'd be like Willy Wonka's factory and make them all into my Oompa Loompas. In any case, it's not just NBA stars and coaches who are doing this silly nonsense. Bill Press, right, the famous lefty, he suggests that Trump's base is filled with extreme wacko racists. This is where the left is going. Good luck with this one, gang. Good luck with this one. Remember last week, Stephen Colbert suggested that America was the real bleep hole, right? That all these other countries were not bleep holes. America was a bleep hole because Trump was president. The disdain for Americans who disagree with the left is really coming out now because they're using disdain for Trump as the proxy. And I think that this is what so many Trump supporters and Trump voters are basing their support for Trump on. I think wrongly in some ways, but I think that this is what they're basing their support on, is every time they read an attack on Trump, they read an attack on them. Because every time there's an attack on them, it's an attack on Trump, right? And what Bill Press here says is so indicative of a worldview and mentality that comes from the left that everyone can read into the verbiage, right? Listen to what Bill Press says, and then you'll see that people make the connection between what Bill Press said and what Hillary Clinton said and what Elizabeth Warren is saying today about Trump.
I am sick and tired of talking about Donald Trump's base. So he's got 35% of the most extreme wacko, racist, I don't know, rednecks in the country. And
Pat sort of wacko.
Not all of them.
I'm going to speak. Let me speak for the deplorable.
Let me speak for the average American, if you will.
We have another term for the.
But you know, everything is always that. This is fine. He can say whatever he wants because it pleases his base. He can do whatever. He said it best. Yeah. He could go out on Fifth Avenue and shoot somebody, and his base would say, "Good for you, Donald Trump." Well, come on.
Let me tell you
more than that base.
So, meanwhile, in other news, the Democrats are grilling on the Hill today the Department of Homeland Security Secretary, a woman named Kirstjen Nielsen, about President Trump's alleged statements regarding immigrants from bleep hole countries. Right? And they're grilling her. Did he really say bleep hole countries? Did he really say he wants fewer people from bleep hole countries? Okay, we are now in what, day 6 of this controversy? This interminable controversy where we're supposed to discuss ad nauseum whether the president is a racist or whether he was just making comments that were about which countries we ought to prioritize. And we're just going to go around in circles on this thing, and everybody's going to make each other crazy. One thing I will say, when Democrats suggest that they are deeply concerned about the president's racism for saying that he wants immigrants from Norway over Haiti, and they refuse to acknowledge, by the way, that the day before, the ambassador from Norway was or the prime minister of Norway was at the White House, which is probably why Trump was saying Norway. And they refuse to acknowledge that Trump said in that same report, the Washington Post report, that he wants more immigrants from South Korea, which is not exactly indicative of racism, because South Koreans are not white, it turns out. And that maybe it's just possible Trump was talking about a merit-based immigration system. Now, maybe he wasn't. Maybe he was saying something racist. Maybe he was saying, I want fewer black people in the United States. Or maybe he was saying that you have created a system by which we are supposed to judge a hierarchy of countries that we are supposed to take immigrants from, and I'd prefer to take immigrants from countries where the countries are closer to the Western way of life than countries that are less close to the Western way of life, which, again, that's not racist, okay? And it may be wrong, because the fact is what I would like is a merit-based system where we judge individuals instead of judging the country of origin. But if you're going to judge solely based on country of origin, of course you're going to value South Korea over Russia, for example, because South Korea is a more westernized country than Russia is. Okay, I've used Russia as the example because there are a lot of Russian immigrants to the United States who do really well. I mean, my great-grandparents were Russian immigrants to the United States, but Russia is also a place that's governed in a very different way, has a different culture and a different language, right? In South Korea, everybody virtually knows English. It's taught in schools, I believe, and South Koreans come to the United States and have a history of doing incredibly well here. So is it wrong to talk about prioritization of countries if we are going to talk about prioritization of countries? And here's how you know the Democrats are fibbing about all of this. So Chuck Schumer was on CBS's Late Show last night, because we have to have our comedy shows be replete with politics. And here is what he said. He said, Trump's comments over and over and over again can be described as nothing but racist and obnoxious. He says he's not a racist. Well, I have a challenge for Donald Trump. Okay, actions speak louder than words. If you want to begin, just begin that long road back to proving you're not a racist, you're not bigoted, support the bipartisan compromise that 3 Republicans and 3 Democrats have put on the floor, everyone gave, and get the dreamers safety here in America. That's what he should do. In other words, embrace the policy that Chuck Schumer likes, and that's how you can prove that you're not a racist. And that's what I was saying yesterday, is that it seems to me that a lot of what Democrats are doing here is using the racism club in order to beat Trump into a corner on policy. And there's a certain irony to this, right? Chuck Schumer is saying that Trump is a racist for saying that people from certain countries are going to assimilate better than people from other countries, or that we should prioritize certain countries over other countries, and that's racist, right? But Chuck Schumer is proposing a legal regime that prioritizes certain countries over other countries. If Chuck Schumer really wanted us not to judge people based on their place of origin, he should be in favor of getting rid of the diversity visa lottery. He should be in favor of getting rid of country-based, origin-based immigration systems. He should be in favor of an individual merit-based system, which I am told President Trump wants. And President Trump says that he wants. So if we were really all on the same page, and we were all anti-racism or anti-bigotry or anti-discrimination based on birthplace, then we'd have a system that didn't take into account birthplace, wouldn't we? We'd have a system that looked purely at whether somebody ought to come into the United States or not on an individual level. But Democrats don't want that. And that's how you can prove that what they're talking about, this deep caring about Trump's a racist, Trump's not a racist, it's all a lie. They don't care about that. They want their policy priorities. If they really cared about racism and immigration, they would be trying to wipe out any semblance of country of origin being the adjudicative factor when it comes to immigration itself. But I think that there's something else going on here, too. And I think the Democrats are painting themselves into a corner. So I think they're doing this on shutdown talk. So right now, there's talk of a government shutdown. So Republicans obviously control Congress. President Trump, the immigration deal is basically dead. It's going to be unlikely that there's any sort of immigration deal cut with Democrats. Democrats have no interest in giving Trump any sort of win here. But you could have a government shutdown if the Democrats do not go forward with the Republican budget. Now, I highly doubt that Democrats will do that. I think Democrats will probably go forward with the budget. Trump will sign into law some big budget just like he did last year with very few cuts attached. It won't include border funding. It'll basically be a clean government funding program the same way it was last year, because I don't think that Trump actually has the intestinal fortitude to have a government shutdown fight with Democrats over border wall funding. I think he should, but I don't think he will. All that said, Democrats have painted themselves into a bit of a corner. Like Claire McCaskill says, welcome to our world. We've got people running for president all trying to find their base, and then you've got people from Trump states that are trying to continue to legislate that we always have by negotiation, and never the twain shall meet. In other words, she is saying that there's not a lot of interest in actually coming to an agreement here, but nobody also wants to be blamed for an actual government shutdown. So there's a lot of hubbub. Obviously, a lot of the senators are fighting with one another, but the chances that we shut down the government over all of this, I think, are incredibly low. There's another way, though, in which Democrats are painting themselves into a corner, and here is how. Hillary Clinton got herself in all sorts of trouble. Hillary Clinton lost the election in large part on the basis of suggesting that the vast majority of Americans, or at least a large swath of Americans, were deplorables, racists, bigots, alt-righters, or that anyone who supported Trump was a member of this group, that anybody who was sanguine about Trump as president was ignoring his bigotry in order to vote for him, right? That all of these people had to believe that bigotry and racism didn't matter, making them racists and bigots. And there are a lot of people who felt like, you know what, Hillary's a jerk. I'm going to vote against her just because she disdains ordinary Americans. Democrats are verging on that. When they say that Trump is a racist, they're not just saying Trump is a racist usually. Okay, what Democrats are usually saying is that all the things that Trump has done are racist. Right? This is the Chuck Schumer point. That if you want to prove you're not a racist, you have to agree with me. But there are a lot of people who don't agree with Chuck Schumer and who are not racist. Right? I don't agree with Chuck Schumer. I'm not a racist. Okay, I don't agree with Chuck Schumer. And in fact, I think Chuck Schumer's policies with regard to immigration are kind of bigoted, because he wants to benefit certain countries over other countries as opposed to using a merit-based system. Right? But Democrats, when they suggest that Trump's policies and his rhetoric are all of a piece, that everyone who agrees with Trump on policy must be a racist, what they are doing is driving away large segments of the American population. They're making you choose. You can either choose Trump's policies and his racism, or you can choose Democratic policies and their non-racism. Well, what if I neglect to make that choice? What if I say I like a lot of Trump's policies, but I don't like a lot of the things Trump says? Well, Democrats say I'm not allowed to make that choice. They've created this false dichotomy, this false binary. And I'm now supposed to fall into that trap. The problem is that alienates voters. Right? If you're a Democrat and you're saying that, you should think twice about saying that. You should think twice about saying that Trump is a racist, not just because it's questionable as to whether Trump is actually a Richard Spencer type racist, but also because if you're going to say Trump is a racist, you need to say his comments are what make him a racist, not his policies. But Democrats aren't doing that. They're just saying that Trump is a racist bully, and the implication, and I think that all Trump voters are reading into that. I think a lot of people who are not even Trump voters, I didn't vote for Trump, and I'm reading into that. I think what they're reading, that when people say Trump is a racist, what they're really saying is anyone who agrees with his immigration policy is a racist. Right? That they're using Trump as a proxy for anyone who agrees with Trump policies. So when Elizabeth Warren says Trump is a racist bully, she's actually, I think, painting Democrats into a dangerous corner, ripping the American population by proxy.
Donald Trump is a racist bully, and we know how to deal with bullies. We do not back down. We do not shut up. We fight back. And no matter what they throw at us, nevertheless, we persist.
Nevertheless, we persist. Of course, there's her slogan because she wants to run for president. Okay, again, the idea that Elizabeth Warren is going to lead the fight against bigotry after using false Native American heritage, allegedly, to gain her job at Harvard Law School is beyond insane. She's not the only person Democrats are trotting out. Again, if you're going to go out and call Trump a racist, you have to use non-racist to call Trump a racist. You can't trot out Al Sharpton. Okay, they tried out Al Sharpton, a guy who is legitimately responsible for at least helping to incite riots in Crown Heights in 1991 against Orthodox Jews, and then again against Freddie's Fashion Mart in New York City that ended with the burning down of the store and the death of many people who are minorities. Al Sharpton is one of the worst racists of the last 35 years, and here's Al Sharpton ripping Trump as a racist.
You don't have to spray paint the N-word over the Oval Office and sleep with a KKK hood to be a racist. If you have racist policies, say racist things, operate in a racist manner, you are a racist. Period. End of story.
Okay, so it's that part where he says racist policies that's fascinating, right? When he says racist policies, that's the part where Democrats are going to lose everybody. If they just said Trump's a bad character, I think a lot of people agree. If they said Trump might be borderline racist in terms of his statements, I think a lot of people would probably agree, or at least give Democrats the benefit of the doubt. When they say you must agree with us or you are a racist just like Trump, you're going to lose the entire population.